Okay, part two of the little roundup, and as we're going up the stairs here, the final steps, of course, we're getting us a nice view straight up to the right into this nice little observation tower on this side facing Main Street, going away from downtown into the side that goes on the right. Of course, a good take on our Titan Stadium, LP Field, as it's still named at this moment. And somewhere in the back, there are the borderlines remaining counties and views to the airport. And like I said, this tower, this little observation tower, is just so full of history. As it actually starts right here on this little rock. And I'm going to get a little closer here, which gives us a view of the year 1804. And I'm going to give us these numbers here with locations and directions, and then there is this old map of an 1804 Nashville here. Very interesting for little history buffs. And this is actually in this piece of rock right here. Again, feel free to pause this thing because this is going to be longer taking. I'm trying to make this through as quick and as best as possible as we can. Because like one of these rocks, benches, tables, whatever you want to call it, there is many of those. We have a view of 1908 with the public square as the one I'm standing on right now. And again, they were trying to modernize this whole thing in a modern scale as we see it right now. But, of course, with a modern touch on it. And here's the view from 1854. This time with the view of Cumberland River, all the streets. Nice layout. And there's another one of those big fellas right over there, but we're going into this in just a moment. So, let's take us a closer look into this little history as I'm going to make us a slow roundabout into this whole thing. And as you see those top rails here on this view, that if I'm going over, you got a view again of those nice fall trees. And then you see from this point of view, by the way, the skyline of our back tower with the USA building. USA Bank building, I might say, and the WKDF old office building. I'm not quite sure if they're still housing the radio station at the same spot, but you see it right there. And with this view, we're going down, and we're facing a lot of history of Nashville, Tennessee engraved in this little stone wall right here. And as I slowly zoom out, try to keep the writings in the screen, I'm going to slowly move on. And you feel free to pause this thing at any time. And that'll give you, of course, time enough to read as I'm only slowly, surely move on, step by step, to give you a glimpse of this nice history forever engraved in this wall, in the stones. And this is all roundabout of Nashville's history with the wilderness as it begins, dealing with a lot of Native Americans at this time, Indians. Weren't really all too much excited about these foreign settlers to come in and snoop around a little bit, but that's just eventually what they had to deal with. And here's more of this history, some reflection on this light as I'm trying to go down. And here's a first settlement, which we see there in the background, a famous Fort Nashville in its entire glimpse, where I have currently some footage on YouTube as well, a little bit overexposed from the light, as I wasn't able to figure this out at the time, but I will make another tour on another section of it with a better light. As we're going up in those times, we're looking at a 1780, and mostly then out of a French settlement, we came up to be what we now know as Middle Tennessee. So that's why whenever you come to Nashville, Tennessee, there's a lot of roads, streets, and areas. They are having a lot of French names, and then you know exactly where this all comes from and originated. And our biggest history, of course, is about all Andrew Jackson. Old Hickory Boulevard, after all, is named after this man, and so many other things. And we're actually looking at one of his old office buildings from here right on up across the street. These little buildings on a lower level. One of them was actually one of his law offices back in the day. Small little building. So, as we continue, history continue, we're going up to the 1820s. Also, we see something about a bridge that for some reason doesn't exist anymore in this kind of feature, but it'll be close towards the train station, I believe now, the Union Station, where you find the old spot of this bridge. And more history details. And again, I'm only zooming over to get a full point of view. And you just pause whenever you can. As our history continues now to 1859, going towards 1860, as Nashville, Tennessee evolves itself to one of those industrial parts of the nation, which then, of course, after the Civil War days, turns into a big tobacco industry. Well, you actually have to say revolutionary time, the Revolutionary Wars, and of course even more than after into the Civil War days. Then, of course, more than ever, which we're about to come real soon. Nashville, of course, is also known, as you can see right here, as the Athens of the West. Not to mention, of course, we still will have to take on West End on Centennial Park with its one and only original Parthenon, which is a one-on-one replica of the original Greek, which actually stands there in original Athens on the big hill and pretty much destroyed. So you only get to see this here at Nashville, Tennessee, a one-on-one replica out of the real Parthenon as it once looked. Only a temporary idea at that time, but people were so excited about it that they had to make it permanent. Pretty interesting undertaking. As we're approaching halftime right here, as you know, it is moving fast with me, but you simply pause at any time. But this time right here, we're moving up, and you get a definite direct glimpse of the direct Nashville downtown area. Just left the sun behind the clouds, which was working out pretty good for us. Then again, a good direct hit of the courthouse and the county public building. And as you see right now, the Birch Courthouse in the background as we're slowly moving on to part 2. And here you find another bigger stone rock table slash Big Point family picnic table and a history map. This time we're going into 1963. And I hope the resolution works out for you pretty good. As I'm zooming over here to get this all in here for you, then again it's 1963. And for those people, of course, who have a slight idea what Nashville looks like right now, you can see slight little progress. Happens even as we speak. And the red spot, of course, is where we are right over here, Davidson County Public Building and Courthouse. And we are now going to the right. On the right-hand side, we are now, as I mentioned earlier, now officially on the little history plate, approaching the 1860s, which is the pre-Civil War area. And now with that, Nashville has a population of about 17,000 people. And the information of history continues. Of course, big problems erect early in here with the election, of course, from Abraham Lincoln becoming America's president, and of course a lot of southern states weren't really quite too happy about it, which led it one way or the other to the official split of all these southern states as we know it now. For later on becoming the southern part of the country, where we have now later on the north and the south, both claiming the ultimate right to this country. And we all know, of course, how the whole thing has ended, and thanks to a great president here, after all, who was really down to earth with his ideas, it continued to be an even greater city, an even greater state, where Nashville moved on even further into the history, with now more and more history coming to light. Most of the historical buildings, lucky as we are still in place today, with a few exceptions and a few real buildings. There once was an amazing downtown library. There also was an even impressive downtown mall, which is actually going to a most modern history. But it was kind of demolished during the late 1990s, which I guess a lot of people now more or less regret. A little too much light, but I guess we're making it. Getting it all together in less than 15 minutes, hopefully. More amazing photographs engraved in these little stone corners here. You actually see the Bat Tower as a reflection of me behind here, which is not part of this 1941 history lookup. This is more likely what we're looking at. Union Station. And the original courthouse. And now, another point in big-time history was, for some reason, even World War II has. Even World War I has its decisive bookmark in Nashville history, as I will later make my point on this when we have more footage coming up, even from the state capitol, which I mentioned here earlier, not the one for the state employers, but the real original state capitol, which is the oldest state capitol, by the way, in the United States. And we'll have a close look in one of my next recordings coming up, and see how many great things you can see and find over there. And we've got a few moments here to get a little closer to get into the history of Nashville's African American population. It was, of course, a major stage center point in all of the Deep South, where Nashville played a major role in this as well. And this is literally it as I approach my final segments in here to get it all in the right time frame. Another close-up right over here. And this is it. We have now completed the circle on the public square, on those little observation towers. And as I continue now on this little right, again another view here to the left, straight up into downtown to the right. And we're spinning around the circle, and you have to check this out for yourself. It doesn't look really that much from outside, but this is one of the reasons why I took it in. But it does look like much more when you go up there.